Maybe what I'll do is I'll edit this part to the very beginning when we're all really tired and just want the video to end.
Oh, hey guys.
Hey guys, we are starting the draft rankings.
This is future us.
This is future us. We just died ranking all of the teams. Brad's team is perfect. That's all you need
Again.
to know.
Post, edit, cut.
Are we ready? Are we ready?
Kids,
Aye, Captain!
I can't hear you.
Aye,
TCP, you're letting it. You're doing it
Oh.
wrong.
Oh.
Splurge is just the much better voice actor in this situation.
He really is. Hello.
We need to get Ian to do that.
There we go, that's how we start.
Yes, I like how.
We're keeping it in.
Man. Are you keeping this?
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
keep it. Do
Why
it.
not?
Do it.
Hello, welcome to ASL Season 8 Post-Draft Rankings with me, TCP, and I'm joined with Malone and Splurge.
Malone, you go
Hi.
first.
I'm
Hi.
here. I was talking about Ian because, not important, but he should do his second story. That's the main moral of the story. Is he should continue his.
He really
thing.
should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need
Anyways.
context here.
But we're here joined
After.
with a
Okay.
special guest, Splurge.
Hi.
We haven't inducted him into the YouTube team, even though we have 2 videos of him. But yeah.
TCP.
Oh, blimey. I'm flying around my room.
Splurge is the draft rankings guy, so he's going to draft rank with us.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I am.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can move on to the first team, the Dallas Mudsdale, coached by Texas, in his very offensive lineup. Oh, I want to give a heads up.
Hold on. Just so you know, there's an S at the end of Muddales, but of course you'd make that mistake. Of course.
Okay. And so this team is. Oh shit! I forgot what I was gonna say. What I was gonna say before Malone interrupted me about it being
Take
the Dallas
two.
Mudsdale. Take two is that I have a sheet of everything that I don't like about every draft. So I have a lot of bad things to say. It doesn't mean that your team doesn't have good things. I just happen to focus on the negatives. I see glasses half empty every time. That's why we have
Even if they're
Malone,
completely
right?
full.
Malone,
Yeah,
resident
sure.
positive guy.
Of course, that's me. What
But
if I just
anyways.
roast on every team now?
You mean all of the positivity is left to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So first team we got Tapu Koko, Mega Aerodactyl, Blacephalon, Celebi, Fortress, Swampert, Noivern, Scrafty, Meloetta, Quillfish, Smeargle, and Glaceon. I gave it a B, Malone you gave it a B, and Splurge you gave it a B+.
Yep.
That is true.
Shall I kick off and be positive?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I like this team more than the other two. I don't know whether it's just my general positivity emanating about it. But so generally this team works for me quite well. It's very slightly specially biased on the offense, but you can't complain too hard when you still have a Mega Aerodactyl and a Tapu Koko, where so Koko can still pull out like I think it's Z as well, but so, it can pull out like a Z Wild Charge or a Z Brave Bird, something like that.
Post, edit, cut.
Anyway, I'll just plow on for a bit. But yeah, so the thing that really kind of wins this draft for me is the E tier picks, actually, because whilst they look slightly unassuming, they all do a couple of things really well, and actually they do things that do really well specifically for this squad. So you have a outside possibility of a manual Aurora Veil setter with Glaceon. You have a webs sketching just annoyance in Smeargle, and then I believe Quillfish gets Toxic Spikes as well, which also do quite well for this squad in a more patient approach to how it's going to play. But yeah, so generally it's an offensive squad, and it actually has some low tiers to it that can really complement what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I'll go just to be the neutral before the storm. But unfortunately, I did not hear everything you had to say, so I'm just gonna kind of go over what I have
That's
here.
fine.
But overall, first thing is I really like the speed tiers, and I know there's is a gap, but
Yeah.
I mean straight off the bat he has Coco, Mega Arrow, and Noivern, and that's a lot of speed to handle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean the thing that I don't like most about this team is I think it kind of relies on Fortress a little bit to handle a lot of the defense. That and Swampert, because like dragon types, Coco's obviously it's a fairy, but it's not known for taking hits. So
Yeah.
Fortress is kind of its only answer to a good dragon type
Mm-hmm.
on the defensive side. But otherwise, I mean, I like the team. It's fast, but comparing to the other teams, I think B's a good ranking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am usually pretty
DCP.
bad at
Is he alive?
I don't know. Talk about a good host.
Am I not alive?
Oh, there he is.
Oh.
He's
Sorry.
resurrected.
You-
So I usually don't like very offensive teams. I find them a bit harder to analyze because I don't usually like to play with them. But this team, I actually found a similar thing to Malone, whereas this on the defensive side, it's pretty much all Celebi, Fortress, and Swampert. And if you're relying on Celebi, Fortress, and Swampert, then it's just like roulette of like which hidden power is gonna 4 times hit your defensive mon. Also, he relies on Scrafty, I think, a lot with this team because I think it's his main swap into like rock types, ghost types, and rocks and ghosts. And rocks and ghosts hits a lot of this team really hard. And it really relies on Fortress, as Malone said. Malone pretty much had everything I had, whereas Swampert, Fortress, and Fortress is really relied on specifically to get rid of hazards, because you're not really going to want to get rid of hazards with Arrow, Coco. I guess Coco can run hazards or hazard removal pretty well. But Arrow, Noivern, and Smeargle really don't like to.
Yeah.
So,
Shall we move on?
next team.
Next team,
PC Barcelona.
PC Barcelona.
Who wants to lead off on this?
I will. I gave this the B minus. So first two teams that we probably all looked at was Shadow and Texas. And they look very similar in the fact that they are very offensive teams. But the difference between their teams is that one of them is run by Shadow and one of them is run by Texas. And I'm not drafting. I'm not.
Wow.
And I think the difference of that comes into the fact where, whereas Texas, yeah, he has to rely on 4 times weak mons and like Scrafty and yeah, that type of stuff. But he does have ways of swapping into pretty much everything. Shadow, he has a hard time swapping into things like Scald. Like nothing on his team wants to swap in on a Scald. Nothing on his team likes swapping into a Moonblast. So like specifically Moonblast plus Psychic coverage, which is pretty easy to find on most Psychic types and most Fairy types. It kind of like hits everything on this team. Fighting types is also really good. Fighting coverage is really good against this team. And while it might look like it has resists, a lot of those resists are Oricorio, Kadabra, and Arbok. And you're not bringing Oricorio, Kadabra, and Arbok like ever.
Mhm.
That's what I have to say.
I'll pick up on it now because I gave this a B, so one up from what TCP gave it. And yeah, point of view of it, it's very similar to Texas's team, in the fact that so you have some really good offense, you have a lot of, you also have a couple of decent setup sweepers. You have the other really fast flying type that kind of is between base on 30 in Swallow, which is kind of nice because you get scrappy boom burst. My issue here is that you have a lot of mons which can run clearance but don't want to, which is actually my issue here because the only real thing that does is Armaldo, and so yes, Armaldo can be brought and it can be run, but to me Armaldo also falls into the similar kind of category as Oricorio, Kadabra, and Arbok, and that kind of like they're a very niche pick, and you're going to be wanting to bring the power more often than not. And Armaldo doesn't fall into the same bracket as the rest of the team. But I mean, apart from that, you really do have solid offense. You do have a bulky backbone which you can fall onto if absolutely necessary in P2 and Aromatis. I think Aromatis is going to be the big deciding factor into how this team plays, is just how well you're able to it's working for this team in passing wishes when it needs to stuff like Blaziken, which will probably act as a breaker for this team. It's not perfect, and it's not to the same standard as Texas team, hence a step down from B plus to.
Well, I guess this one is more of a personal, ranking because I've seen Shadow play more than some of these other people. And a
Wow.
lot of it. Well, I mean, it's not like just based on their skill level. It's just more of, obviously this is a lot of mons that Shadow's used in the past. We got Zera, P2, Swallow. But considering Shadow's success in the past, I mean, obviously it's not the highest, but he's also had some of the worst, considered the worst drafts in the past 2-3 seasons, and he's been able to pick up some inconsistent but interesting runs. But that's just kind of the personal, a lot of my breakdown of the team is kind of similar to what Splurge said about the removal and just like hazards in general. He has two hazard setters, one reliable remover in Armaldo. The other ones, as Splurge said, aren't gonna really want to run it usually. But the thing about his team is that you're able to play around hazards with his team, I think. Spikes might be different. His team does probably would not. It just kind of depends on how he plays around it, because his team isn't bothered by hazards as much as other teams are. But in terms of the positive things, I think this is one of his better teams, and a lot of it the speed tiers in this team I like too. You have Cartana, Swallow, Zera, Blaziken. They're all. What I'm trying to say is I'm giving Shadow a high ranking because I actually like his draft, despite a couple holes. So hopefully he can use it well this season.
Okay. Time for Ian, the Human Skelopedes meme review incoming. And I guess I'll lead off with this one too, because the concept of this team is really simple, I think. You have 4 mons that carry a lot of teams that want to come a lot with Clefable, Hydreigon, Mega B, and Azelf. But all
I
of
think
them,
sound
all of
right.
their stabs don't hit steel types very well. So you have trappers like Dugtrio and Magneton, which are really good against steel types, where if you U-turn into them, then you trap the steel types, get rid of them, or force them to run a Shed Shell. And he has a lot of solid mons here. Let's see. My only problems with this, I probably maybe should have given this an A minus, but the things I don't like about this draft is I really don't like Dugtrio as a mon. Like as a mon, I feel like it's a really niche mon to have as one of your higher tier picks, and I feel like picking it up at in the C tier is a tier that you want to like solidify your team with, and I guess Dugtrio does it for this team in particular. But like I don't see Dugtrio coming a lot, and maybe see Magneton being more useful as that role than Dugtrio. And it does have a problem potentially with flying spam, because really what swaps into a flying type. And I think, oh, never mind, I had more to what I didn't like. Bulky Waters, yeah, I remember now. It really can't break a Bulky Water other than Magneton. I mean, I guess Beedrill can do it too, but it really has a hard time breaking them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what I have.
Milan, do you want?
I'll let you go because we can just go in
Okay.
order.
Yeah. So I gave this B plus due to some of the similar reasons to what the good things about this though is there is a lot of really nice synergy here. I really like the Clefable, Hydreigon, Mega Beedrill kind of grouping together. Never, ever, 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 ever underestimate somebody who can actually use Clefable, because it will ruin your life having to try and prep for every single one of its viable sets. Hydreigon is another really versatile mon. Mega Beedrill does well at what it does, and it can also be like a really, really, really unlikely Toxic Spike setter. Dugtrio, yeah, Dugtrio is which has excelled in open metas, but has really struggled to assert itself in draft before. It'll be interesting to see how it's used here. I trust Ian to be competent. Azelf, another really versatile one. And then we get into the lower tiers. And I don't know what happened exactly, but it feels like you got sniped to the yin yang, or you're being really brave with your choices, because when I look at this draft, I think, well, if I can get rocks up and they stay up, I've won the battle. Survive, because the stealth rocks do half the job for me. Let's talk about clearance first. So you have Mega Beedrill, which doesn't particularly want to run it. It's weak to rocks. You have Hitmontop, probably your single clearance mon, but it's a Hitmontop. And so I personally, I really don't like Hitmontop. It's what it wants to do, and whilst it has like enough coverage under the sun to be able to do pretty much anything, it just doesn't have the speed to actually try and go and do it. And then so your other clearance is Moltres, 4 times weak to stealth rocks, and I think Masquerain gets defog as well, 4 times weak to rocks. So
And Hydreigon.
okay, yeah, okay. Hydreigon is the other mon which might conceivably run it, which isn't weak to rocks. But again, Hydreigon is not something when put in this team. It does not want to run defog. It wants to trying to just smash through stuff, because the pairing of Hydreigon and Mega Beedrill is really, really nice to actually just clear out, and it can't really afford to try and be supportive when you have so many other mons that can kind of pseudo be supportive but aren't. Which is why. So this again. I'm jumping on a single issue a lot here but it doesn't. It's something which I don't want to take away from the fact that this is still a scary draft to deal with. Like, you have a really good wish passer in Kangaskhan. You have Omastar, which is able to shell smash up, utterly turn a game around. And yeah, just the higher tiers in this are really nice. It's just that clearance, you have, it's not on the right types for me. I think that's about what I have to say. Malone.
All right. Yeah. I had a lot about just the minimal removal, because the minimal viable removal, I should say, because it is. I'm not going to talk about it that much because Splurge definitely just covered all that. But otherwise, basically, I like almost all of it besides the removal. It obviously isn't the fastest team. I guess there's ASL and Doug Trio. Well, obviously Mega B, so maybe I'm kind of wrong. I didn't even have that, so don't worry about it. But otherwise, I mean, I like the team a lot. As I think, someone was saying about how just the pivot, you can pivot into the trappers. He has a really good pivot on this team, and the synergy is really great. And just overall, he has the offense covered. He has solid defensive mons, but the main problem is just gonna be trying to not get chipped down.
Hey. For 4. Me, ECP. I'll let someone else talk about my team before I talk about it.
Shall I go? Just to double down. Yeah. Yeah, it's a solid draft. Just this draft confuses me in some ways. So the Jirachi, Mega Kang, Salamence is all pretty good. But then I look at, so again it's this okay, to me this has a similar issue to Ian's team in the fact that, so I look down this draft and I see one mon which has clearance, and then a couple where it's like, I think it does but I don't know. And putting that much of a reliance on Rotom Heat being the reliable defogger is probably not ideal. I know Salamence also gets defog, but yeah. So I mean that was first issue to kind of clip it back in my standings a bit. The other thing is that this looks like a team full of breakers with very little in the way of cleaners and sweepers to me. Again, never slouch on Mega Salamence, not Mega Salamence, on Salamence or Mega Kang. It's just, to me, this team can break, but it can also be caught off guard by something else sweeping it, in some senses. I only gave it a B plus. I say only, but yeah, it's why I gave it a B plus.
I'll go so you can talk about it last TCP.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I like it a little bit more than Splurge was saying. I can get what you're saying about the removal, but Ments, Rotom, and Forges all are pretty decent options.
Florges, how
Forges gets
Yeah,
defog.
Florges gets defog.
Seriously? Is that a
Yeah.
Gen 7? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's new. It was new in Gen 7, I think.
Okay.
But I mean, just your point still about it's still definitely gonna be annoying. But
I mean, Florges is definitely okay. I now want to change it slightly. So yeah, no, that definitely does help, because another one which is generally as reliable, if reliable, than Rotom. Anyway, that's me. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I mean, just overall, I mean, I think it's a good team. It definitely can set up, and I think it's just about whether you're gonna be able to use the setup, because a lot of these mons are normally breakers, but there's a lot of potential in terms of setup. So a lot of it's just gonna be about how you play and your TCP. So there's high expectations here.
Yeah, there's high expectations. I actually really like my team this season. I like it a lot more than a lot of my teams in the past season. And while I do see that Florgus is the only thing that really would take a rock type hit that can remove rocks, um, my main problems with my team is that similar to Ian's team, of my top 5 mons, only one of them has stabs to take on steel types. So that makes steel types a bit of a problem for me. And also, but the main problem is probably actually water types. Because nothing on my team really likes taking a Scald, and my resists, like Salamence, Seismitoad, Sceptile, Salamence and Seismitoad both have 4 times weaknesses. That
Seismitoad
can
doesn't
be,
resist it. Just
or it has water absorbed most of the time.
oh right, I'm stupid. Don't worry about it. Continue. I didn't say anything.
So they would come in on water types, but like Ice Beam is a tech that it can easily come on most water types for Salamence and Sceptile. And Hidden Power Grass is not that hard to put on for Seismitoad. So that makes bulky waters a real big problem for my team. Simply because I have a hard time swapping in. And considering that every team has a bulky water, or every team should have a bulky water, that's kind of a big problem for my team. Also, specifically with steel types, if they set up rocks, I really have a hard time dealing with it because I can't really swap in Florgus to defog them away right away. I can swap in Rotom, but Rotom gets threatened by a Stone Edge or something like that from most steel types. And yeah, so steel types, which are mainly rockers, can usually get up rocks against me, which is kind of a problem. And bulky waters just don't die. But other than that, I like everything about my team.
Okay. Shall we move on to Wenter's Weavlars and Vish?
Mm-hmm.
You got
Next
Vish.
team.
Next team.
Team.
So this is a really cool team. Like there's a lot of really cool mons on this. Like Mega Zam, I don't think has been used since season 3. Pex, I don't think has really been used since maybe Vish used it last season for like a week. I think, and maybe he dropped it. I'm not sure. But he also has Bisharp, which hasn't really been used. So there's a lot of mons on here that hasn't really been used super effectively that Vish can probably work around. And while a lot of these mons don't get used for specific reasons, I'm going to harp on Bisharp. The reason why I don't think Bisharp gets used too often is because you usually want a pretty bulky steel type on your team to deal with like the Psychic Fairy coverage. But the thing about Psychic Fairy coverage is if you're fighting a mon that will mostly spam Psychic coverage, then Bisharp is like the Pursuit Trapper. Like, you're scared of Bisharp. If you're fighting a mon that's like Psychic and has sometimes spams Fairy, Bisharp is an okay mon to swap in. But you also have, or no, if you have a mon that will spam Fairy types like Moonblast, you have the actual Toxapex to deal with that role instead of Bisharp. And Bisharp does have the scary chance of, if you hit a Moonblast on Bisharp, and it does the 30% special attack drop, then you have a +2 Bisharp. But the things that I find might be a problem because he's using niche mons is both the traditional roles of water types is to deal with things like rock ground coverage because they usually swap in pretty well. And Fish might have a harder time swapping into rock ground coverage, but he does have the Lando, which is pretty good for that. But building off that, the counter to that is the Mammo coverage, the rock or ground ice coverage, which is really strong against this team. So if someone has a Mammo Swine, they should
Let's
keep
not
it
talk about that.
for this team.
Let's not talk about that too much.
Also, Bolt Beam can kind of be a problem for this team too.
Yes.
I
Milan,
guess
go.
I will add in because the first thing I had on my notes was wrecked by Mamo. But yeah, I mean,
I can confirm it doesn't.
he noted a lot of things that I was going to say. A reason that I think B plus is good for it is the support for Bisharp is good, I think, but there's still a couple holes left by like the Pex and Toj core kinda. I mean the but I guess that's what you were saying about Bolt Beam, pretty much just being an issue as well. And it's also a little knockoff week overall because Mega Zam is not gonna want to take that, but I mean, you do have Avalug and other things for things like that. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good team. Just certain weaknesses in terms of typings and stuff.
Yeah. So the reason why I gave this an A is that you make very valid points in a sense of that. So it's very Mamo weak and Bolt Beam. However, the real kicker here is that it actually has as much as they are issues, it also has the bulk to be able to shrug it off to some extent. Pex, whilst not being ideal, can still chunk a Thunderbolt if need be. In my opinion, admittedly, it's not going to take one from Xurkitree or something, but on your average Bolt Beam Mon, it's gonna be a bit touch and go. The other thing is that this team does everything that it needs to actually supply Mega Alakazam with a suitable scenario in which it can go for stuff. You have Lando I. You have a lot of really nice. Actually, no, you only okay, right. I just need to stop talking in general. Lando T does a really good job here of acting as almost like a pivot around. It doesn't need to stay in for too long, and it's not actually relied on too hard by this team, I feel, because it hits the U-turn and it goes into one of kind of like a Delmise or a Hitmonlee or Megazam or Toxapex, and you just there is a sense that this team has something for anything, in my opinion. And yeah, it's why I gave this the same rating as another one that I really liked. And yeah, just generally that, and also I know I shouldn't at this point, but so this is also playing into I trust Vish to play this team well, having seen what he does sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a team that Vish will thrive on because it is very easy to see it is very easy to see the weak, also not exactly rocket science to prep against either, which was shown in our game for week 1.
Oh wait, you fought him week 1 with Mammo
Yeah.
Swine.
Yeah. And I basically brought kind of like a setup which would pile drive it, and I still couldn't manage to break through because I brought Speed Pass into Mamo, and he brought max defensive Avalug and max defensive Avalug 1v1s Mamoswine.
Yeah, I guess.
And actually, so whilst whilst it shouldn't have been a Hail Mary at that point, it was because I was playing poorly. But we'll get onto my team and its issues later on. So the next team, I believe, is St. Louis Samrots.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start off by saying this. I did not give anyone an A. I gave one person an A plus, and it was Brad. I mean, so every team, pretty much what I do when I'm doing analysis of it, is I'm always trying to look for the bad stuff, because that's the stuff that is important for me if I want to abuse it with prep and stuff. And with Brad's team, I have a really hard time finding anything bad. Like, this team, at first, you might look at it as like, okay, it might have a little bit of a problem with rocks, because you have two flying types and Mega Charizard. And so, but the thing I was thinking of is, or that I couldn't think of, was any rocker that doesn't let Rotom or Scizor in to immediately default right away. Like, I literally could not think of one. If you can think of a grass fire type with stealth rocks, then let me know.
Rocker Boy Gaming. No, bad joke. All right.
Wait, sorry, say again. If you could find
a
beyond
grass
rocks,
a grass fire type that sets up rocks.
I mean,
It doesn't exist.
that's if you want a fire type that sets.
Wait, what? Fire type.
If you want a fire type that sets rocks, you got Infernape.
Yeah, but Rotom can switch into it. Also, Tornadus can switch into it. Theoretically.
Let Infernape just slap that big T-punch.
Slap that big T-punch.
But anyway, I'm getting off track.
A lot of the stuff that the downsides of teams like this, which are like I couldn't think of like a normal type combination that broke this team either. Like, I was going through it, I was like, okay, if you want to scald this team, then Tentacruel is switching in all day. If you want to spam psychic types coverage, then you have Crocodile. If that's psychic, if it's psychic and fairy coverage, then you have Scizor. If it's like psychic and fire coverage, then you have Tentacruel. Like, this team is, if like ground coverage, like Rotom pretty much stops all ground type combos. Bolt Beam, you got like, let's see, it just has stuff good for almost anything I could think of. Hazard removal is pretty good. Hazard setting is pretty good. I mean, if you guys have any problems, let us know.
I don't. I don't have. I mean, the only things I have to say are positive, which is what you've already pointed out. It's a little slow, but there are webs. But I don't know. I'll let you go, Splurge.
And so the only thing that I have to complain about this team is, so whilst yes, there is no single typing that can break this. The big thing to me looking at this team is that it felt like it needed like one more Pivotmon to me, because Rotom, Wash, and Skizzer are really really nice for pivoting around this team, but I felt that it needed just one more to properly seal the deal. But apart from that, it's scary how well Brad has managed to fit a team together after being sniped to the yin yang.
Does Torn count as a Pivotmon?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, Torn gets you. Okay, fine, it's perfect. Give it an A plus.
Next,
Yeah. Yeah.
next we got Peaches, with the Woodland Rewilds. And I will say this team is like you go back to Vicious team, he used a lot of niche mons that like aren't used too often. This is like I feel like the definition of niche mons. Like Mega Gallade was definitely not anywhere near the most powerful tier A. In tier B's, I guess Tapu Fini is really good, and Volcarona can be good, but like Volcarona in draft, I feel like I've never seen Volcarona in draft ever work well. But I'm very optimistic for this team to work it well because I feel like it has a lot of ways to synergize with the Volcarona. But the main problem, the biggest, this is a huge problem, by the way. The reliable recovery is essentially just like Whimsicott Z Memento and I guess Leech Seed from Whimsicott, Drain Punch, and Roost from Volcarona. There is like no reliable recovery.
What do you
on this
mean?
team.
The best Mon Noctowl has Roost?
Oh yeah, Noctowl has Roost.
How could you forget?
But like the reliable recovery is really lacking on this team. And this is the kind of team that's more bulky and wants to swap in and like it's more like a balanced kind of team, I feel. So because it has a lot of like more niche mons, it's not like the big wall breakers that I feel are on this team. I mean Volcarona is a big wall breaker, but it's a big sweeper too. But I feel like this team will have a hard time finishing battles early, other than Volcarona just doing Volcarona stuff. So the games will last a long time with this against this team, and that means that this team is gonna have a real big problem with getting chipped down and just dying at the end. And I feel like, or I guess there's also Muck Curse, recycled, berry, gluttony stuff. But yeah, I think that the power level of each picks from each tiers are like on the more lower end, and also the big problem I have with recovery for this team specifically, with how it's more of a bulky, balanced kind of team. Let's see, anything else? I guess my
TCP's
last
wish
problem
list.
was flying spam against this team.
Yep, I had that too.
Flying and potentially ghost spam too.
Well, Splurge.
I mean, I gave us B plus. Generally because actually, so I don't see that flying and ghost spam is as much of an issue as it may first seem. In part due to the fact that actually you have double steal on this team, and you also have an Alolan Muck, which can sit in front of and pretty much any ghost type that's name isn't Golurk or Palisand. So the things that I really like here is the choice of having Finny on the team with Mega Gallade, a Volcarona, and an Alolan Muck less so much, but so stuff like Kingler. It's something where this team could have been so much more if there was just one more big setup sweeper. I feel for Tapu Fini to really accentuate its possibilities. Tapu Fini in and of itself is also a very nice Carmine sweeper. I think that this is a team that 6-0s by turn 12, or it is a 40 turn team. And I think I think that there is definite possibilities for this draft to end games early. It's just that if they do, it is going to be an absolute annihilation. It's going to be a very patient game that they have to play. In terms of clearance, you have a really nice set in Tuck Finney and Don Fan. My only slight thing that and Whimsicott. So yeah, my only slight thing here is that you have a couple of shared type weaknesses on your clearance between those three, because you've got both Whimsicott and Finney being weak to poison, and you've got both Don Fan and Finney being weak to grass, and you've got both Don Fan and Wim being weak to ice. So it's a little bit sorry, it's a little bit not so much shaky, because all three are actually quite reliable, but there's a bit of shared weaknesses between each. But yeah, it's not bad. It's just it's not got the knife edge that it probably wanted to really wield, in my opinion.
Yeah. Malone, you go over this team?
Not really. I added that I also agreed with your opinions, like about how it's a little flying weak, but I don't know. I don't have much to add besides what you said. Although I don't know. I do think I gave it a B plus over B because it has a lot of setters and a lot of really good ways to chip down teams that can, obviously not completely, but like slightly make up for its lack of recovery. But it's still, yeah, just it isn't able to recover the best, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So
Shall we talk about Agnes?
Yeah. We have Agnes.
Agnes.
I like this team. I like it, but I have to give it a B. Clearance isn't all that. And I mean, the first three mons are amazing, and the idea of webs plus mimic. But so it feels a bit kind of, you've got too many. As much as I was discussing this with you whilst we were drafting, it feels like you've got one team, Agnes. I'm sorry, because you have you got webs, you've also got sun, you've also got a Regigigas thrown in there because you can for all your life and then actually do some damage after 5 turns if you live that long. But yeah, it's just a little bit pointed, and I can only really see that now, having taken a proper look at it.
Yeah. Let's see. A lot of it from me was, I guess this is another thing that I have, but its speed is just not great. And so, I mean, it does have webs, and it's definitely not like gonna ruin the team. But even with webs, it isn't the greatest, and the webs can definitely take away from some things that Ribombi can do in terms of its offensive prowess. But it's otherwise, I mean, he does have a great defensive core with Megalotti, Milotic, even Aggron. I mean, pretty good overall in that. I think another thing that for me was an issue was it's kind of ice weak in my opinion. Uh, Especially if it has freeze dry. Looking at it again, from when I originally looked over the team, they're definitely Conk's gonna be able to take ice hits. Looking back at it, it's not as ice weak as I originally thought, but you still got the first 7 mons of the team being weak to ice, or not weak, but not having a resist if it has freeze dry. But I don't know. I guess that's still a little harsh.
I really don't like this. I gave it a C plus. So first looking at it, you see Mega Latios, Conkeldurr, and Milotic. These are 3 mons that are gonna come every game. They're gonna be good every game on most teams. I feel like these are 3 are you look at them and you get scared because those are 3 really solid mons. But that's the thing. I feel like this team only has 3 solid mons. I mean, I guess Rabambi has seen some success. I guess Mimikyu can do some success. But the thing that I feel is important to have when you only have 3 good mons is to have more than 3 good mons. So, with tier C, usually how you want to format most teams how when you're thinking about your team. At least this is how I think about it. You have the first 5, and these are going to be the 5 that if you're matched up against a random opponent with a random team, these 5 are usually going to be pretty good to bring together. And I guess I could see how bringing 4 of these top 5s are pretty good. Like fairy, dragon, fighting, water. Okay, pretty good. But having both Mimikyu and Rabambi as kind of like a niche fairy, not like a bulky fairy, but like I find them more niche. I guess Bash is probably someone who really loves Rabambi. But this I don't
he was originally just saying.
wait, what?
He was originally going to go for Araquanid, but saw that Milotic was still on the field.
Oh yeah. Milotic is fantastic on this team. That's probably the one saving grace from me not putting this lower is Milotic. But when you look at like the top 5, you have Mega Latios, Conkeldurr, Milotic, Mimikyu, and Rabambi. Problems I had were, let's see. I know it's fairy swap-ins. Like fairy types are always coming against Bash. Like not only do you have a Mega Latios and a Conkeldurr, but your resistances are Victory Bell, Aggron, and Torkoal. And Victory Bell doesn't really like to swap into them. Torkoal is a physical monster, not so much on the Spidef side. And Aggron, if you're bringing Aggron, then I guess Aggron could come, but like Aggron's so weird. I don't really like Aggron. But I don't really like also the problem that he has with swapping into most threatening stuff. Like ghost coverage. What does he swap into a ghost? I guess it's Milotic. Shit. I guess he can swap Milotic into. This is why I was saying Milotic was like the only savior to this team. Because like Milotic, one of the things that Milotic does well is it can pretty much be a fix-all to pretty much all teams. Because Milotic is going to swap into any and live anything that isn't super effective. And even if it is super effective, it has to be like super effective, you know? Like
It has to be super effective.
Bloom Doom or like Gigavolt Havoc or like not Z Solar Beam, like Power Herb Solar Beam. You have to like put in a lot of work to take down Milotic. And that's the thing that people are going to be just going to have to do. If Milotic goes down on this team, a lot of things start going wrong for this team. Like, very fast. I guess Torkoal is also pretty good at doing a lot of those things, too. But, like, a lot of everything after, like, Bolt Beam is also a problem. I'll talk about that a little bit. But after, almost everything is a niche pick. Like, I guess you do have something that seems like a fairly strong fighting psychic dark core with Latios, Conkeldurr, and Honchkrow. But then you notice that all of them are weak to fairy. Literally all of them. You have a pretty solid grass, fire, water core. Water, fire, grass, whatever. With Milotic, Torkoal, and Victory Bell. And this is probably going to be like the solid stuff of this team. Because this team might have to rely on Torkoal to do a lot of stuff that Torkoal might not be able to do. And Victory Bell just wants to be offensive. I guess it can be defensive, but like it just wants to be offensive. And then you have your Fairy Dragon Steel of one of the fairies which are niche offensive fairies that won't really take hits. Your Megaladios and your Aggron, and one of those is an Aggron. You have some problems. I think I have more written down, but I don't want to talk too much about why I don't like this. Bolt Beam is also a problem. Yeah, that was.
Well,
But it's not the worst team, so I gave it a C plus.
No, that
Because
comes later.
right now I'm giving Cody a C.
wow, spoilers.
And by the time this comes out, Cody has already beaten me and destroyed me in every single way with this team. And it confuses me so much because I look at this team and I have a bunch of it. If it wasn't Cody who drafted this team, I don't think this team could have any success. Honestly. Like, this is the weirdest Heatran Bulu team I think I've ever seen. I mean, I guess it's not weird to see Hawlucha on it, but, like, double water afterwards, like, nothing.
Never underestimate Greninja.
I guess so. But I was. This was something that came up that I've thought about before, is that for some reason Steelix is, like, the mon that brings this team together. And
Yes.
because it's like the thing that swaps into rock type. It's the only thing that swaps into a rock type move, and one of the only things that swaps into an electric type move. Like, is there anything else that swaps into a rock type on this team? Not really. It's only Steelix, so that means Steelix has to come every time, I feel. And if Steelix is coming every time, also this team has so many weaknesses, or like its weaknesses are like big weaknesses, like rock coverage, big weakness, electric coverage, big weakness, ice coverage, big weakness, water coverage, big weakness. Like, this team has big weaknesses. And I guess in a way, the only upside to having really, really like huge target big weaknesses is that you know what your opponent's gonna bring because they're gonna prep for those big weaknesses. But you don't want to draft a team that has. I don't think that's. It's counterintuitive. Like, do you really want to draft a team that has such huge weaknesses that you know what your opponent's bringing, but you also know that you're going to be weak to it every single time, and you're gonna have to outplay them every single time with just like offense stuff, which I guess Cody can do because he's like the offense guy of this league. But like, if it wasn't Cody, this team would be in a D.
But it's
Also,
Cody.
yeah, but it's Cody, so it's like he has. If you look at it in the eyes of like Cody, you see like Hawlucha, that's like his boy. Greninja, that's like his boy. Arceus, that's like his boy. And a lot of mons on these teams, I could see it being his boy. So like, for some reason, Cody's probably going to make it work. And offensively, it's pretty strong. But oh yeah, nothing likes taking a scald. Nothing that resists water likes getting burned. Just saying. Also, one of the things I like, I'll leave it off on a high note. Drifblim, I think Unburdened Drifblim is cool. You guys can go.
Gosh, how do you follow that?
Don't
I
know.
mean, you just wrecked on his team. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm in shock.
Huh. The more I look at this team, the more I start to understand the ideas behind it. I think is the big thing. It's a very weird Bulutran team, but it's also a team where so you start looking at it closely and you understand some of the ideas behind it, as so kind of grassy terrain for Steelix having to along with the Substricker for all of the electric issues is quite nice. one of the big things that's even oh my word, no, this is actually a nice draft the more I look at it. Because I was about to say the big thing that you're missing here is fairy type, because you've got Bulu, which isn't a proper fairy type, but you've got Gardevoir. Yeah, no, this is a unassuming draft, I feel, because I think C+ is actually unfair for this, and that's what I gave it. I really like the dual waters in Mega Blastoise, because Mega Blastoise is an overlooked mon, I feel, sometimes. It is a solid spinner. It also does really well. Its Mega Launcher offensive set. Hawlucha is something which sometimes struggles a little bit more in draft, but you can never estimate it. Slightly out of place here is Salazzle to me, because you've already got a really good type, and it's just another 4 times weak fire type, and it's a poison type that doesn't learn toxic spikes. And actually, I feel if you wanted something along those lines, there are other options out there, I think, which could have done a. Yeah, that's me. This is, yeah. Oh man, I placed that poorly.
Well, this has been a roller coaster. I mean, I don't know. A lot of this is just because it's Cody.
Yeah.
But I mean, Cody's good. Oh, really? What an insightful piece of commentary that I just said. I mean, I do like the team. I think it's a little hard to understand. You guys were talking about all his weaknesses and all, Steel Legs and Rock. All of that, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. And a lot of things are still a little interesting, like Greninja and Mega Blastoise, which I mean I still get. And it also, it doesn't have a. It's gonna rely a lot on Gardevoir being able to. I mean, I don't know. I guess it does have decent Dragon answers, so. I mean, I did have the highest ranking. I should be saying positive stuff, but what I have positive about the draft is I like its speed. At first glance, it doesn't look like it's like the fastest, and it isn't. But considering, what you want in your draft and what you want to build around, and he's able to pick up Heatran and Bulu, and then still have Greninja, Hawlucha, Salazzle, Archeops, Zebstrika, those kinds of things, and even Drifblim. And I think it's also, obviously has good synergy with Bulu, Lucha, like all of that. I don't know. I don't have the most insightful commentary about this particular draft, but I don't know. I still think it's good, and also it's Cody. Next team, because TCP is getting interrupted.
We're
Let's see
on
who's
to
next.
Brad.
Ooh.
So actually gave this the lowest score, Milan, so why don't you start?
Well, Brett. I don't know. I've already talked to him because he's kind of seen this, so I'm just gonna talk about it in general. First of all, I really like the team. It's like, I don't know. I guess it's just because like I prefer things like this. It's just on paper, it just doesn't seem that good to me in general. It's a little weird. It's got Mega Main, and then it's like the speed tiers just go down, and I mean with a mon that's like a Mega Main, it's not gonna. The speed tiers are always gonna be a little weird because it's just so fast. But I mean, Cryo and Persian, I think, are the next highest speeds.
Yes, they are.
So definitely a little interesting. But yeah, it's just on paper it's not great. It has some weaknesses. Definitely ground weak to me. Has a couple of lower tiers that probably can handle it, but in terms of the higher tier mons and a scarf ground type is gonna be an annoying thing for him to face, I think. And just general other things like fairy type, and obviously Metagross is it's pretty good. It's pretty good handle, like pretty good way to handle the fairy type, but it's just not. It's hard to do that on its own, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of teams struggle with things that are only one mon can handle, and it's rough. But overall, it's just again, it's kind of it can be considered weak to Mamo again. Bolt Beam kind of not as much. Um, I do think the webs are nice though. That is one thing I'll give him. I think Levan was definitely a good
Yeah.
pickup. I know he was planning that
Yes.
the whole time.
Mhm.
But I mean, overall, I like the team a lot, and I think if I had it, it'd be fun to use. But you know what? I was gonna give it higher, but considering what you said, Brett, here it is. Here's the C press. Now C plus. Gosh. Now go prove us all wrong, because that's what you want to do.
Yeah. There are a couple of choices here which are a little bit out of the ordinary. Personally, I don't think that the speed tiers are all that bad. It's just that the top end is a little bit scarce. You actually have three quite potent setup sweepers here in Sylveon, Komodo, and Mew. It's only one of them is actually an ever-present issue as a setup sweeper in Komodo. And so both here actually, a lot of the time it feels like they might want to be brought slightly differently, this falling into the classic trap of putting Mew in a box almost in what it needs to do to make the draft work. But I mean, the top five mons are a really nice collection of mons to bring. A bit ground weak, definitely, and two cannon as the reprieve from that, or cryogonal. I am or Miss Magius. I am unsure about. Alolan Persian as well. For this draft, to be able to parting shot out into one of your setup sweepers is really nice. Yeah, it just feels a little like there are a couple of choices here, like Flareon and Quagsire, that don't add up properly to me.
Yeah, this was actually one I was going to rate at a B because a lot, like just looking at it, it seems not the most powerful picks. I would say, like not the highest sought after picks. I mean, Sylveon, Metagross, those are two really highly sought after mods. But and I guess Persian, but like a lot of these mons are like in the middle of their tiers power levels. But the things that I really like about this is, in a lot of ways, this reminds me of a TJ team, where I think Brett will excel a lot more when he has a lot of different versatility options. And like Mew, Komodo, that is like TJ stuff, but like they are the definition of like versatility and the ability to maneuver around. And I think Komodo always will have the ability to do that because it's just so good physically, especially as a rocker, as it does a lot of things really well. And I think Mew, it can do anything, but one of the things that lets it do a lot of these things is that Metagross in itself, as a psychic type, it will do a lot of the roles that a bulky psychic usually needs. I guess he could have problems where what I'm trying to say is that usually when you see Mew in draft, it'll either be stuck in two positions. One, it will be stuck being a defensive wall,
Mhm.
or 2 will be stuck baton passing boosts. At least that's the culture in the ASL. It's probably not in other leagues where it's stuck baton passing boosts, but in the ASL, it's oftentimes where it's forced to be the baton passer. And I think Mew, under Brett specifically, has a lot of options, ability to shine. And I think that will be one of the big things for this team is like, how do you prep for Mew and Komodo? And the thing that, so I thought this team was pretty average in power level, so I put it at B. And then the one thing that made me bring it down to a B minus, dropped a letter grade, as you might say, is the hazard. Because like Mew can have defog, and Cryogonal has spin, and Toucannon has defog. But the thing is, Mew rarely ever wants to run defog unless it's like defensive. And then even if it is defensive, it's like maybe like only having psychic coverage. And Cryogonal, while it's pretty good at, I guess people kind of like it for its removal. I don't really like Cryogonal for its removal at all. So I think his team might have a real hard time getting rid of rocks. I think that will be not necessarily the worst problem for this team because Komodo and Metagross resist it, but like Mega Manetric and Persian and Flareon, not really Flareon, but like Mew, they're going to be coming in a lot of times and getting chipped down a lot if you can't reliably get rid of rocks.
So,
Ohio.
Finally time.
finally
It's
time.
time. It's time for the draft that wasn't taken.
So do you want us to talk about your draft first and
Oh,
then you
yeah,
get to
go
it to
for it.
last? So this is the team I think epitomizes a problem that some people have with drafts. And the problem is that some people draft the first 5 mons and don't think of it as the mindset of these are the 5 mons that I'm gonna have to bring the most. And you look every mon here I think individually is pretty solid. Like Celesteela, one of the best mons. Suicune, one of the best mons. Mamoswine, one of the best mons. Superior, it can be niche, but it's pretty good. Alolan Ninetales, I don't like it, but I've seen it do work, especially with Hail. And then I actually really hate Mega Ampharos, but that's a story for another day. On this team, I think Mega Ampharos is pretty solid. The problem is that when you just look at the first 5 mons, it's like there are shared stuff that they don't like switching into, like fire type moves. I guess Suicune likes switching into fire types, but most everything else, like if you have a Celesteela, you're going to be running against fire type moves. Electric type moves are going to be coming because you have a Celesteela, so that makes Suicune a bit harder to bring. Another thing that's going to be a problem is fighting type coverage. Not a lot of things like to swap into fighting type coverage other than maybe like Claydol and Musharna and Venomoth, I guess. Rock coverage is kind of difficult for this team to swap in. Then you have to bring Claydol. So Suicune and Claydol are the 2 things that like I feel are the glue for this team. That's kind of a problem because Suicune I feel like does better when it doesn't have to be put into these rules, when it can just come in and just like pressure stall some things, annoy some teams down. It doesn't have to swap into specific Pokemon every single time. Claydol I think is just a mon that is pretty good, but you don't want to have to rely on it for those specific. And I think you said this yourself, but Splurge. I don't think I think Alolan Ninetales is not the mon to have on this.
No.
And it's kind of a shame because this is something I'll talk about a bit more. But one of the cores that I like the most are a pure water type and a pure grass type. This goes back to something in season 3 that I witnessed. But something like Suicune Superior, that is something that's really strong if the rest of your team synergizes with it well. The problem is the rest of the team doesn't really synergize with it well. So it doesn't really have the chance to shine as much as I would expect those two to shine together.
All fair.
Okay. I obviously gave it a higher rating. And I get what you're saying about, the weaknesses that they share. And I think a lot of it's going to rely on how you use your lower tier mons, because I feel like they're pretty good help in terms of the weaknesses, like electric, fire. Like, I mean, you have some pretty thick boys, as you you could say, and just in terms of coverage, and even like the fighting weakness, it's definitely there. But even like, it's obviously not all fighting types, but there are definitely some fighting types that can't get past Celesteela or Suicune or what have you. But I feel like the weaknesses aren't as bad if you yeah, at least if you play right, which is weird to say because it's not like saying, I guess it's kind of like imposing, like if you play correctly then blah blah blah, but it's more of just like, I don't know, just I think with what you have on your team you're able to cover the majority of weaknesses that you have. But overall, I think it's a good team. I mean, it's just so freaking defensive, and I know this is kind of like, for me, like I hate this team to play against. Like, this would bug me so much when I prep for it, and I know it's like it has, it's not the fastest team. It's there's definitely some holes. The removal isn't, you don't have the best removal, which
No.
the removal isn't 100% necessary. But I don't know. I feel like B plus was good for me.
Yeah. So talking on my own team here, so everything that has been said is true about this. In that, so this, to me, the biggest thing that I'm missing here is, I say this and I now need to quickly double check something, because I don't think it does get it. No, is that, so the big thing that's missing here for this team to really really excel is a reliable wish pass. And so it's a reliable wish passer and to sort out those top 5 mons, as TCP said. Because I did not seriously plan for the draft, and I did not want to, because I wanted to see where a speed draft took me, and not get caught up in being annoyed at the fact that the stuff that I wanted was busy getting sniped.
What just happened?
I don't know.
Did someone mess with the source part of the doc?
No.
Alone?
I don't see the problem here.
I mean, I saw
Spelled
somebody
Beedrill's wrong.
Oh.
Fun fact.
Yeah, I was gonna say you want that. So yeah, the other thing that the other helping issue is less so much to do with the draft and more about how I play and the kind of draft that I've drafted, because this of somebody who understands how to play bulky offense and balance is going to be an absolute pain in the butt. However, I'm not somebody who particularly recently. I mean, I have been able to play it in the past, but not recently. Been able to properly play balance and bulky offense. So I'm busy trying to reteach myself how to really deal with this team and get it to work. So it's going to be a shaky couple of the first weeks whilst I sort out the issues and actually reteach myself. But hopefully, I can get it to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shall we talk about
it's our very own Melonian.
Malone?
I guess we'll go with the tradition of leaving Malone last to talk about his own team.
Yep.
So, I might have been a bit rushed with coming down with these last few teams to talk about, but I have something to say about some of Malone's stuff. So, when looking at this team, there's a lot of really good synergistic mons, like the Fire Water Grass Core of Infernape, or not Infernape, Incineroar, Keldeo, and Ferrothorn. That's really strong. Even though they don't really like fighting type coverage. Each one is, I guess, Ferrothorn is a bit difficult to use in draft because it really wants like a really solid water type next to it. And Keldeo might be able to do that, but that might be a little bit of a problem. But like, Cofagrigus might be able to make up for that. The problem might be I I didn't other than like Mega Diancie bouncing back rocks, getting rid of rocks is actually kind of a problem for right? I don't think it has any defoggers past Shadout, and I don't think there's any spinners.
Volbeat.
Volbeat. I guess Volbeat gets
Volbeat
rapid.
gets spin.
No, defog.
Okay.
Oh. So
I guess Trickster defog is decent.
that's kind of a big problem
Thanks, Dave.
for some of these
Yeah.
mons. Another problem is potentially that almost everything that's offensive is a special attacker. Like Diancie, Keldeo, Galvantula, Incineroar is 50-50. Dragalge, like, they are very much special attackers. So you might run into a lot of actually like assault vests coming against you. But something that's actually really good, it's kind of like the meta of the draft league this year, is that a lot of teams are going to have a hard time swapping into Moonblast. Like, there is not as much solid field types, if I remember correctly, on a lot of teams. So Diancie's gonna have a field day with a lot of these matches. But that's what I have to say.
Yeah. This is a seriously heavily especially attacking team. And secret sword on Keldeo is not going to save you. However, the hazard setting here is really quite nice, in my opinion. You've got Galvantula for webs, you have Ferrothorn for spikes and rocks, and Piloswine for rocks as well, amongst other things. This is kind of the team that has a little bit of everything, but it it just feels a little bit like you're going to be relying on Chatot, funnily enough, to relieve you from the fact that every single week what is going to happen is that everybody is going to be hitting you as hard as they darn can with whatever ground type they have. Because this team is seriously has a bit of an issue with ground types. That and Cofagrigus will be massively defensive. Apart from that, though, I like this draft. This is the kind of draft that I would normally draft because it's offensive. Yeah, I can't really say much more.
Okay. Well, let's see. I like this team a lot. It just seems fun to use. There's definitely some holes. For some reason, I've been drafting Ferrothorn a lot recently, but it is what it is. Um, uh, I don't, I don't know. I personally like speed, and this team doesn't have a lot of it. I mean, I do have webs, which is gonna be nice. And I guess it's kind of similar to Brad's team in the way, in terms of speed and how. I mean, I guess that's kind of generic because it's just a slightly below average team in speed and webs. But I don't know, it seems similar that way. But otherwise, I like the synergy. I like the hazards. I think Dragowsy gets T-Spikes, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So, yeah, Splurge was saying I do like the hazard setting. But also, as you guys were saying, I definitely don't have removal. That's good. And I don't have, or not don't have, but I'm very ground weak, which I've seen. And I don't know. My lower tiers, I like them like as mods because hopefully they'll be fun to use. However, I kind of just panicked towards the end. I mean, in terms of my original draft plan, I don't think any of the last 6 mods were actually on the plan. Got kind of sniped a lot after the first 4 or 5. I don't remember, but I don't know. I don't have a lot to add besides what you guys were saying, so that's probably it for me.
Cool. Right, let's bring it home with the last 2.
Next team.
This is actually one of my favorite drafts. It's weird to look at. I will say that. I'm waiting for Mega Marvel to show up on the screen.
It's not gonna show up. Just keep going. Move
Okay.
on.
But the reason why I like this team is because it reminds me of one of my favorite teams of all time. And when I first started in the ASL, I was pretty new to draft. And there was one, I started off in season 3 as a co-coach for Static. And there was one team that I was observing during season 3 that was that blew my mind because every single time it seemed to bring like the same exact team, but it like worked out like surprisingly well. And that was Laurie's team. And if you don't know who Laurie is, she was one of the old coaches. And she had a sand team of Tyranitar Excadrill, and she pretty much backed it up with a core of Suicune and Shaman. And Suicune and Shaman, this is why I like the pure water and a pure grass type combo, specifically with Shaman. Because Suicune and Shaman, in this case Vaporeon and Shaman, if you want to play it like this, can take on the bulk of most everything in the early game. And how Laurie would always play it is she'd always whittle things down with Suicune and Shaman in the early game. And then at the very end, Excadrill would come in and win the game. And unlike Laurie, Static has like 3 Pokemon that can just come in and win the game. They won't do it like a sweep like Excadrill. I guess Dragonite can. And I guess Scarf Hoopa also potentially can. But they're gonna come in and they're gonna like destroy something every time they come in. And I don't think Static will play it like Larry, which I guess is fine. It's Static. Static's gonna do what Static does. But it just gives me good memories. I also like how a lot of the lower tier mons, I guess not Haunter. I don't see Haunter doing well. Static's probably gonna prove me wrong. But I could see Static in particular bringing. Lycanroc is the only fast thing that I think people are going to be scared about potentially hitting them. So it might leave faster teams to potentially just run. Where is Mega Mawile? It's not showing up. The first box is supposed to be Mega Mawile. And where was it going? So it might cause people to run more adamant and modest fast things, which could be a problem for Vaporeon and Shaman to do what Vaporeon and Shaman do. That's just something I would need to witness this season with Static doing his stuff. But one of the problems can be is that you have a Dragonite, and the only thing that I really see getting rid of hazards, I guess Sigilyph can do it pretty well because it has Magic Guard, but Silvally is like the only real mon on this team that likes to get rid of hazards. And Silvally is a pretty good mon to do that because you can customize it to be that hazard removal every time. I'm just not sure if Static will be the type of person to always that.
Yes. I'll go because I
I
had the
don't know
same rating.
how we can follow that up.
TCP is just very
Comprehensive.
yeah. He takes his time. Yeah. I mean, you've kind of covered it. I do like the defensive core with Vaporeon and Shaman. It's very good clerics, and the thing about them is they're both like pretty versatile. I don't know. Vaporeon not as much, but in terms of the defensive mons that he has, Hoopa can be defensive. Even like Stunfisk. I think Stunfisk is pretty good. I think it fits his team well. Um, but otherwise, the offense is also very good too. Like he has, in terms of just like at a simple level, his offense and his defense, he can. They're both very good, and it's a little heavily physical outside of Hoopa. Can be special or Shaman, Typhlosion, but I think other than that, it's a solid team. It does struggle with hazard removal as well as speed, I think, a little bit. But other than that, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. My thoughts. Yeah, I really like the Trick Room core here, particularly. Um, and the fact that you've been able to build a comprehensive draft around it as well is really impressive. I want to see Crabominable put in the finest of work under Trick Room. And yeah, I mean the only issue again is clearance, because it's a little inconsistent on the. You can't have everything. Final team.
Final team.
Final
Last
team.
team,
Washington Redskitties.
best Matt.
That's Matt.
That's Matt.
Best Matt is what I said.
Oh yeah,
Well,
best
I
Matt
mean,
by
it's best Matt as well. This is a really nice team. I'm just going to go straight off on this one. This team I really, 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 really like. It just has everything going for it. This is a team that works so brilliantly around QB and Infernape. And yeah, kind of Skarmory and Mesprit and Miltank for a hazard setting backbone that can also deal a little bit of damage when need be is a really nice core behind it. The only thing, so the big thing here is that actually, so the first probably like 9 mons on this squad, I can see coming week in, week out in. The only thing that, and actually do well as well, the only thing that really pulls this team back for me is the final 3 mons. Is just, yeah, like I don't see any of Go-Goat, Basculin, or Fletchinder turning up more than once or twice in the season, because apart from Go-Goat, they're doubling down on typings that have already turned up. And they're doubling down on typings that have already turned up that do fine. The only thing that I could see that's different is the fact that Basculin is an offensive water type, and nobody should ever sleep on an offensive water type because it catches people out left, right, and centre.
yeah. This is a solid team. Like here in Black and Fernape, that is 2 solid monsters. Skarmory and Nihilego backing it up. I think maybe Nihilego is a weird one to have in there, but Skarmory is a really nice mon to back this team up. What I don't. The downsides of this team, I think, are going to be the fact that going back to the first 5 months, there isn't a rock resist and there isn't a fighting resist, and those are two things that are going to pretty much always come against a hero in black, right? I guess steel types coverage too can come, but steel type is not as great. And then if you look at the rest of the team, like for swapping into fighting type moves, I guess you got Comfey and Mess Spirit. But Comfey and Mess Spirit, while there are pretty bulky, they don't necessarily want to take hits that much. Comfey kind of wants to set up and try to finish things with Calm Mind, and Mess Spirit kind of or I guess Comfey can do some cleric work. But Mess Spirit just kind of wants to pivot. I guess, yeah, Mess Spirit's pretty good on this team. It's a pretty good team. And I think, is Gastrodon the only rock type resist? And Gastrodon is a pretty good mon to have as a rock type resist. As I was saying before, rock ground is a type coverage that you usually want to have a bulky water for. Gastrodon is one of the better ones for that. But also, Gastrodon has the problem of it does have that 4 times weakness. So theoretically, it can be prepped for, but Gastrodon's Spadef is so good that HP Grass usually isn't enough. Maybe, like, if you have rock types, maybe the play is to be, like, hidden or natural gift Grass. Maybe that's the play against Matt Metagross. But a lot of this team is scary. If I was drafting this, I want to have Mega Absol on.
I don't know. I personally like Mega Absol. From what I can tell, it was kind of like an on the whim decision. He might have been sniped. He might have just, he could have not had a plan, whatever. I guess synergistically, it doesn't work out the best in terms of weaknesses, and sharing weaknesses with the first 2 mons is definitely rough, or at least with Q. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like resists. But overall, I think it's a solid team. I really agree with Splurge here about the last 3 mons. That's basically what the only bad thing that I had on my plan, or my not plan, but my notes, I guess you could say. I just don't. I don't get it. I mean, and it's not. He has a lot of types, but there are some types he doesn't have a ghost type. There are some pretty good lower tier ghost types that he could use. Um, I don't know. I feel like the last 3 mons are just not there for me. I will exclude Go-Go just because he did need a grass type, unlike the other 2, and who knows, Go-Go could do something. I don't know. It's been annoying before in random battles, but besides that, I think it's a very good team. So
Finally, the last thing to wrap this all up, it's been like an hour and a half long video.
yes, it
Is
has.
the giraffe rankings. As you can see, number 1, of course, it's Brad. I mean, his team is literally the best. Matt ranks 2nd. I rank 3rd. Vish is 4th. Ian 5th. Static 6th. Peaches 7th.
I
Malone
mean,
8th.
there's some ties in there.
There's some ties in there.
There are some ties in there.
What ties? Tell us.
For example, you and Vish.
Oh, yep.
Yep. And Shadow in Texas.
Shadow and Texas tie. Okay.
And 11 through 13.
11 through 13 tie. Well, oh yeah.
5 through 8.
Oh, you mean by the letter ranking? I don't know.
Yes.
Oh,
Did
okay.
somebody actually did you actually put this in the order?
No, how it's automated is that it averages
Oh
the. It's
yeah,
like an
that
automated
makes
thing.
sense. Don't
I'd
worry
have to
about it.
check. I'd have to check the sources to find out
Bet there's
specifically
still a tie though.
the ties, if it's ties or not. I don't think
Could
it
be.
is.
There has to be a tie somewhere.
There's definitely. Let me look up. Let me use my powers.
It's fine. Everything is fine.
Everything is okay.
It's okay.
Let's see. Averages.
Like I tied with Peach.
Oh yeah, Fish and I are tied. On here. I guess it is a lot of ties. Okay, everything is a tie. Everyone gets the same rank. No one is better than anyone else. But Cody's is the worst.
Yep.
Yeah. This has been pretty exhausting. I'm tired. Anything else to say, guys?
Shout out
Don't think
to
so.
every. I don't know what I was gonna say. Shout out to Splurge for doing this, and TCP. You should link his channel in the description
I will.
because he does other videos that exist.
What the what?
What the what?
I know you're surprised. You wouldn't know Splurge. Anyways, proceed TCP.
Well, that's been everything with the draft rankings. We've been going on for. Let me check how long. By the way, exposed. An hour and 41 minutes.
Yikes.
It's been a long video. I'm sure people skip to their rankings just to know what we thought. Probably were surprised.
Sad but true.
I'm gonna say this ahead of time. I'm sorry to people I might have been too harsh to. I'm just going off some feelings
Ahead of time is over. It's over, TCP.
ahead of time. Well, technically, this is the future. Maybe what I'll do is I'll edit this part to the very beginning when we're all really tired and just want the video to end.
Oh, hey guys.
Hey guys, we are starting the draft rankings.
This is future us.
This is future us. We just died ranking all of the teams. Brad's team is perfect. That's all you
Again.
need to know. Yeah,
Video over.
video over.